For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Manouk, along with Ezra Ginsburg, along with Kim joining us from overseas. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, talking about the Winnipeg Jets, the team still on a high, the city on a high, after the performance by the Winnipeg Jets on Thursday night against the Dallas Stars. I was
going to say, how late of a night was it on Thursday night at BP, boys?
It was an appropriately late night, but the atmosphere, the crowd, the vibe check was high on Thursday night, and I certainly felt that as though that carried over. You can certainly feel the palpable sense of excitement in the city. The playoff tickets are already sold out. That happened just as quickly as yesterday. There was very few tickets that went on sale, about 1,000 single game tickets that went on sale yesterday that were sold out just by virtue, I believe, of the pre-sale. There's still going to be a few more tickets that get released as the NHL and the respective teams release their holds in the lead up to Game 1 and Game 2. But somebody should tell The Athletic, not Marat, but somebody should tell everybody else at The Athletic, oh wait, the Jets have been selling out games left, right, and center, and they did the same for the playoffs as well. Maybe they can shelve the bad article for another couple months at the very least. In any event, I digress. Gentlemen, great to see you on this Saturday morning. The Jets can clinch the Central Division, can clinch the Western Conference as early as about 8:30, 8:45 p.m. this evening.
Yeah, good morning, boys. Yeah, and we have someone from Abu Dhabi. Dave just had that up there, so pretty awesome.
Christopher.
Yeah, that's might be the most exotic location someone's watching IC, though we've had some people watching from Singapore and other nice locales, but
Berlin just checked in. The Jax Tunes is joining us from Berlin, so love to see the IC nation is beyond the borders of a nation and is now worldwide.
In Germany, it goes David Hasselhoff 1, IC 2.
That's true. It's true. That's it. The Germans do love David Hasselhoff,
and then 3 is Rammstein.
Anyway,
a little too hot. No, I mean, getting back on the rails here, boys. Has there ever been a better time to be a Jets fan than right now? We've been covering every single year, 14 years at this point, of the Winnipeg Jets 2.0 being back in the city. And I mean, we're talking about vibes. I mean, the vibes could not be better in the city. And obviously we've got folks watching in Grand Beach and other places in the world here. And it's just fantastic, right? Like, you can't minimize how big that win was on Thursday night. And I wasn't there, unfortunately, to join you guys at BP, but I was obviously watching the game at home. And when Kyle Connor scored that goal, his 39th, the first one, to put the Jets up 3-0, wow, was that a statement? And that really put that game away. But I mean, you go up against the hottest team in the league in the St. Louis Blues and the third place team overall in the league, and you beat them by a combined 7-1 score. Right. And obviously the game against the Blues was maybe even more impressive, more dominant than the game against the Stars. But, you love to see, getting goals from the third and fourth lines. Obviously, boys, Morgan Barron has to be talked about. 2 goals in his last 2 games, and they've both been beautiful goals. Anybody who watches or listens to this show knows we're big fans of Morgan Barron, Dave M especially, the pride of Halifax, Nova Scotia. So it's just been incredible. And, going into these last 3 games, obviously the Jets only need a point, which they'll get. I was actually thinking, boys, if tonight's game goes into overtime, do the Jets just put out Jared Anderson, Dolan, Logan Stanley, and Brandon Tanev and just let the boys play in overtime?
I don't think that's going to happen. It's a cute idea, but you're absolutely right. The party will be on, is what you're saying. I think that tomorrow, assuming And that, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've seen stranger things happen.
Spilled
But-
coffee all over the table here.
Well, that's not a stranger thing happening. That's a regular.
That's a regular
thing happening,
occurrence. Yeah.
The only difference is it's not on Dave's carpet right now. That's the difference between typical where you spill your coffee.
I once spilt an entire can of nuts all over Dave's floor, and I tried
Cleaning it up.
I tried to clean all of it up, and then Dave. One day I was at Dave's house, and he lifted up the carpet. He's like, "What's all these peanuts?" I thought I could put them under the carpet, and Dave wouldn't notice.
But didn't you admit that now we're really digressing? But years ago, did you not microwave one of those sort of heating pads in somebody's microwave at their house and then leave it in there for too long and have the whole thing burst? Did that
Yes, yeah. That was a long time ago. That was like I don't know how many years
and the
ago
whole
that
house
was.
smelled like popcorn?
Yes, that was me,
yeah.
and that was my own house that I did that in too, Drew.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't think it was your own house, but that's good to know anyways. In any event, yes, as he microwaves coffee spills, it's all part of your
I once went to
Saturday-
bed with French fries in the oven. And then my roommate had to tell me that was something I probably shouldn't do. But yeah, those were the good party times, Drew.
the dark times in any event. Yes, we are digressing a little bit. What I wanted to talk about this quote from Mark Chipman over the week. And I think it maybe got lost a little bit in the shuffle from all the excitement of the Winnipeg Jets games, the Monday game against St. Louis and the Thursday game
Drew,
against Dallas.
before you get into that, though, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that we're also ignoring the fact that the Jets beat the Vegas Golden Knights for the first time since January 1st, 2022 in Vegas. And folks aren't even talking about how good that victory was because they're focusing on the win against St. Louis. They're focusing on the win against Dallas. Then they go back and talk about the win against Washington. And I just think it's remarkable when you think about we keep using these terms. I know you want to get into the Cheveldayoff thing.
That's fine. Go ahead. We've got lots of time this morning.
I just thought to me, it's just so interesting to think about how many of these pivotal games, Ezzy and Drew, that the Jets play or have played, I should say, sorry. And, it's almost like we're glazing over them, but they're all significant, right? Like the way they went into Dallas, because to the point of the season, the home team had won every game.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Jets were obviously able to break that cycle with that dominant performance on Thursday night. And then again, like I said, to play Vegas the way they did, and don't get me wrong, I firmly believe that there's teams that are not operating at full capacity. There's teams that are coasting into the playoffs because they know where they're going to be. I think the Oilers are one of those teams. I think maybe the Kings a little bit. And I think that the Panthers, teams that have won before, that know how to win and know how to they can go at 70%. But I'm just saying that to me, the way that the Jets played against those, even Vegas, I just think that the Vegas victory seems to be glazed over. And remember, Eric Comrie was in net. And again, we don't know who's going to be in net tonight. I think it's Comrie. I'm not sure yet. And we'll probably talk about that one.
That's what I'm thinking too, Dave. I mean, it
why?
makes sense.
But if it's a back-to-back, you think that I'm of two thoughts with it. I understand. Obviously, Chicago is a weaker opponent, so that could be why you go with Eric Comrie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, given that it's a back-to-back situation, don't you just want to get the victory today with your best roster possible and then forget about tomorrow's game and almost forget about Wednesday's game? Just have it locked up, sealed away, be done with it as quickly as possible?
So you're saying that in an ideal world, Drew, you play Hellebuck tonight, you get the point, you get the 2 points, and then Comrie plays tomorrow against Edmonton. That's what you're saying, right?
That's what I'm saying. Because, by the way, look at Edmonton. That's not the Edmonton Oilers.
No, they won't have Draisaitl or McDavid, or might not even have Hyman and Ekholm.
Hyman and Ekholm, they had a big
Skinner.
They are injury riddled. So it's
McDavid's back, guys.
Yeah, I know.
No, he was back, but I wonder if they play him the last two games.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
because they don't. I mean, right now
he had 7 assists in his last 2 games.
I know, just crazy.
The Oilers are likely going to finish third in the Pacific Division. They could still overtake Los Angeles, but they're 2 points behind LA.
They could also fall into a wild card spot, Drew.
No, they can't. I mean, Calgary can't catch them.
No,
I think they can
Calgary has
games
games in hand. Yeah, I think Calgary's they can catch them.
Calgary and the Oilers have played the same number of games, and they each have 3 games left, and Calgary's 7 points behind.
No, you're thinking of how Calgary could still catch St. Louis and Minnesota.
That's right. Calgary beat Minnesota last night. And now they're only 3 points behind Minnesota with a game in hand. So Calgary is still.
So for all those Jets fans who are already planning their trip to St. Paul, you may want to start thinking about going west.
That's right, because Calgary has the 3 games in hand. Pardon me, Calgary has
2
the
games.
game in hand on
Yeah.
Minnesota and St. Louis.
Mhm.
They beat the Wild last night, so they could still catch St. Louis and Minnesota. Edmonton cannot drop any further than third.
I
in the
thought
Pacific.
Minnesota could catch Edmonton. I thought if they won out and
Yeah, but there's
Edmonton
only
lost,
3.
But
But
there's only 3
teams
spots in the Central.
Pacific. It's 5 in the Central, 3
Yeah.
in the Pacific.
right. Okay,
It's okay.
there we go.
He's new to this hockey thing, guys. It's a new sport for him.
Well,
He's just
guys, I think
finding out.
a lot of people were confused. Like, and we can go over it now. I mean, basically, simply put, the Jets just need 1 point. The only way Dallas could pass the Jets is if the Jets lost all their games, Dallas won all their games in regulation.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of that happening is like less than,
Right.
I don't know,
So
less than 2%.
It's a very low percentage, and there's no question about it. Go
And
ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to Rob's asking, is Hellebuck still chasing individual awards? But the reality is, I wrote about this. If one thing, if he could break it, I still don't think they would do it. But the reality is, at best he can tie Holtby and Baron. I mean, not Baron, Bruder. So the reality is, they're not gonna overtax him. They're not gonna.
Dave, can I just say one thing? Sorry,
Sure.
and I'll go back to you because you have the conch here. I'm the biggest. You guys know I'm the biggest Marty Brodeur fan there is out there. That record is not a big record. Like, it's not like we're talking about the Gretzky goal record here. Like, I honestly, like, people I think keep bringing up the 48 wins. Like, okay, it's nice, but I just don't think that's a motivating factor for what the Jets do with their goaltenders, is what I'm saying.
No, and I think that's fair. I think it's kind of one of those situations. Look, we know that that's the case, Ezzy, because look with William Jennings last year, right, where they had the chance to get Brossoit. If they would have just done some funny business, and they never did it, because at the end of the day,
they want those wins.
They want the wins, and they want what's going to be best for their team overall. And we know that resting Connor Hellebuck, resting most of the team, as I said, I suspect if they win tonight, then or at least get a point, or if Dallas loses tonight or just gets a point, then my suspicion would be that you're going to see the Manitoba Moose for games 81 and 82. Right. And so we'll see about that. But
that goes back to my point that I don't think Comrie against this version of the Edmonton Oilers is a detriment to the Winnipeg Jets.
Fine, but I think what you're doing is you're underselling Eric Comrie. Eric Comrie's been pretty good for the Winnipeg Jets, and I think
I'm not underselling.
He's
That's
been
my
really
point.
good, yeah.
But because I know, but you're saying the Oilers are going to be reduced, so therefore you're putting Comrie against a reduced roster.
No, I'm saying that the Oilers are going to be reduced because they're injured and they're banged up and everything. But Eric Comrie, even if they weren't, the backup goalie usually gets the second half of the back-to-back.
Yeah,
that's just sort of
although the last time the Jets had a back-to-back, they didn't. They used Comrie in game 1 and Hellebuck in game 2.
That's
so.
True.
Again, like I said, I don't know what it's going to be. Well, their morning skate will get going in about an hour and 15 minutes. So
I actually don't think there even is a morning skate.
Well,
today.
I think there has to be, because they didn't skate yesterday.
There is.
Yeah.
No.
They didn't publicize it, Drew. But I'd be shocked if they didn't skate this morning, having not skated yesterday. It'd be very unusual. So I'm not saying it's. I agree with you. I saw that tweet from the PR where it didn't mention anything about times for a morning skate, but.
Drew, you don't get those emails. Dave just gets those emails.
He's on the group chat.
Yeah,
I'm not on the group chat. They blocked my number from the group chat.
You get those on Signal, right, Dave?
Yeah.
that and the U.S. invasion plans of a different country.
Yeah, exactly.
In any event, I think that we'll find out who the goalie is tonight.
Yeah.
But, I think that the mindset obviously is take care of business tonight against Chicago, because you should.
Yeah.
And then you have Sunday and Wednesday. You have that, as we talked about last week on this show, that you almost get that full 7-8 days of preseason-esque hockey is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to have unconventional lineups. You're going to have guys in and out. You're not going to be riding.
Elias Salamonson games.
Well, you might very well might.
I asked him. I asked actually Elias. We did a media availability with him yesterday in the morning, and I asked him if he's thinking about potentially making his NHL debut.
Well, do you not do that, Dave? Like, if you're the Jets organization, and do you not reward Brad Lambert like another guy? I think
I honestly, Ezzy, I'd play 5 to 6 guys at least. You don't want to do it so it's like a glorified AHL game, because obviously, like, people are paying good money to come to the game to see players. But at the end of the day, so what I think is what you do is you'd rest some guys on Sunday, and then you'd rest some guys on Wednesday. And then you'll because the other thing also is you don't want to give guys too much time off. So I mean, remember, it's crazy. I was thinking about this as you were talking. We're 1 week away from the playoffs. Like it's kind of crazy to think we're like the whole season. It's been a great season, obviously, and we've had tons of fun doing these shows, but like we're a week away from the playoffs. Like that's everybody's favorite time of the year.
Do we know if the playoffs are going to, when the playoffs are going to start, by the way? We don't know.
We've heard Saturday. So again, here's just where the situation is. There is a concert presently scheduled for Saturday at the arena.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot
of care of business.
Yes, BTO. There's and I believe April Wine is also on the bill. I once saw April Wine years ago, I believe at a bar on, what bar was it? It was one of the Canad Inns bars. Many, many years ago, I saw April Wine play.
The Rum Jungle?
Might have been, I think it was Boogie Nights. I'm not really entirely sure.
I'm pretty sure a cougar followed me around once at the Rum Jungle, and I don't,
It was a literal cougar, though.
Yeah, it was actually an animal is what it was. In any event, I digress as per usual. So there's a concert scheduled for Saturday at the arena. Now, there's been a lot of speculation if that concert is going to move to the Sunday. Is that concert going to move to a different venue entirely? The answer is we don't know. So anybody who tells you for certain that the Jets are going to be playing at home on Saturday or on Sunday are fibbing through their teeth at this point in time. Last year, it was the same thing. Last year, we were assured the game was going to be on X date, and then they pulled the rug out and they changed it to the Y date at the last minute because television at this point in time, more so than ever, come playoff time, television is what dictates what's going to happen. So we don't know if it's going to be Saturday or if it's going to be Sunday, but what we do know is that there will be an Illegal Curve pregame show either Saturday or Sunday, live at City Place in downtown Winnipeg. We will be there in the food court like we have been at various times all season long. So be sure to join us whenever the pregame show is, either Saturday or Sunday. For sure, we'll be at City Place. And then, of course, the postgame show will be following the Jets and question mark as the playoffs get underway in a week's time.
Yeah,
and we'll
boys,
talk about that,
who
the ideal opponent is for the Winnipeg Jets between the Wild, between the Blues, between the Flames. We'll get into that today on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show as well.
But the question is, will we hear that Mark Chipman quote from Drew that he promised about 20 minutes ago?
Well, yes. Thank you, Ezzy. I will get into it. I thought this was really telling. It's 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman's article on Sportsnet.
Talk about a Jets love fest.
Well, there's a ton of great quotes from the Jets, so we'll be referencing this article a whole bunch in the course of the next hour and 40 minutes. I'm sure the article is also linked on illegalcurve.com as well. Here's Mark Chipman talking about Jets general manager Kevin Shoveldayoff. Quote, "We've never even come to the last year of one of his contracts, and we won't. This is Kevin's job. When you're fortunate enough to work alongside somebody who cares as much as Kevin does, who knows as much as Kevin does, you hang on to those people. In any other business, you don't just move off from people because things didn't go the way it expected to occur in a certain year or two. Kevin has grown every year and got better at his trade every year. And honestly, I'm not starting over with somebody else. I'm at an age where I feel certain he will outlast me in this organization." I mean, that is beyond...
Hold on, Drew. Are Chipman and Chevy, are they a married couple?
They're tied at the hip is what they are. I mean, that is beyond an endorsement from an owner. We all listen to, we all follow sports. We all listen to the quotes that come out and everybody's effusive in their praise. But this is a step beyond, Dave, what you typically hear from an owner with regard to their general manager and anybody within their organization usually.
Yeah, you do wonder though, is there a euphoria right now? I mean, look at what this team has done, and he's taken a team that was...
Apologies to Sydney Sweeney.
How many times have you watched that movie there, Big Daddy?
Ooh, yeah. No, I know some people that have watched it. I've never watched it, but
no, of course not.
Yeah.
So look, it's the reality is this. I mean, the word's on a paper. So it's not as if he is contractually obligated to, well, you did say you'd never fire me, so you can't fire me if we stink and I stink. I just think he is very happy with the job that he's done. And, if you look at the way this team has found success, the way he has managed to keep guys in the fold. I mean, we always hear Winnipeg so hard, blah, 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 blah. Everybody knows the narrative. But the fact of the matter is that he's managed to, let's put it this way. If he doesn't convince Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck to re-sign, we're not having the same conversation that we've been having all season long with talking about this hockey club. We're just not. So the fact of the matter is you can not like Kevin Cheveldayoff. That's your prerogative. But from an owner's perspective, it's hard to disagree with the job he's done. Obviously, again, people would point to the playoffs and what they've done, but from Mark Chipman's perspective, his club has iced a competitive team almost every year after obviously the Atlanta years where they kind of overcame the South Least Division Ezzy. So from that perspective, yes, they have not, other than 17-18, had tremendous playoff success. I actually would imagine that Jets fans of a certain ilk, just having a team beat the Oilers in a playoff series, even if it was in the bubble, and they swept them, that alone would be enough to earn someone a job for life. If anyone remembers the woeful Smythe Division days.
Boy, sorry, Dave. I'm just still picturing BL Seltzy celebrating Ehlers' goal as the only fan in the crowd.
I'll never forget sitting in the press box, looking down and seeing BL Seltzy just walking around. I think there may have been some healthcare workers as well in the building, but it was not a lot of
for
folks.
The Montreal series. I don't even.
Oh,
think
was
the
it?
Edmonton
Oh,
series.
yeah, maybe you're right, Drew. But anyway, so. And then I realized Ezzy was BL Seltzy, but anywho.
No, true story. I actually went up to BL Seltzy and tried to drink him, but
they're like, "Sir, can you stop trying to?" That's
a human. Stop trying to. There's a human inside of that costume, sir. Sir, put down the drink, sir.
So again, and you look at the trade success. He's backed himself into corners in certain regards, but he's been able to trade guys who are, discontented in their situation here, whether it was because of, for whatever reason, whether it was a Jacob Trouba or it was a Evander Kane or a Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's gotten good returns from his trades. There's not many trades that you look at and you go, well, he didn't really get a good return on what he sent out. So
Chevy has been a trade magician.
Well, yeah. And so like I said, so right now, it's like talking about the show on Thursday night where, we had over 600 people in the chat. It was fantastic. We were having a great time. Great times, but when the Jets lose and there's only 100 people in the chat, you're like, oh, this feels.
Well, that's why we haven't guaranteed Drew a permanent position
absolutely.
as host. We've always
contract.
had Drew on a one year by 1 year contract.
I'm actually an intern. I'm a very dedicated and unpaid intern, is what I am.
Actually, we're gonna have
Van Mindel.
We're gonna have an illegal curve intern joining us as of Monday. So,
boy, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. If I've ever heard
illegal
of one.
illegal curve will finally get that chicken. That's the most important thing. So, anyways,
solitary man who may or may not have a chicken.
So it is, like I said, I understand the sentiment based on the success the team is having right now. And it's like this golden age of Jets, right? Again, folks might not like the end result of last year's playoffs, but the reality was it was a really good season until they failed against the Colorado Avalanche. And then they followed that up with the best season we've ever seen in Winnipeg in history for an NHL team. NHL team, remember? I said NHL team.
Yes.
And again, regular season. I'm not talking about the playoffs yet. We'll see. The proof is going to be in the pudding. But I just think that comment again, I don't know exactly when he said it, but it could have been right after the Vegas win. It could have been after the St. Louis win.
It's when Elliot Friedman was in Winnipeg.
It was when he was doing those. Oh, yeah. I remember.
When he was here, he did that series of interviews. Was that before the New Jersey game? I forget. It was a couple weeks ago at this point in time. I don't remember exactly what game it was before. Dave can look it up because Elliot would have been on morning skate that day and everything else. But Elliot was here for a couple of days doing some interviews, doing some playoff interviews, and that's where all these are snippets from different interviews that are going to be, presumably, released in the lead up to the playoffs or throughout the playoffs as part of Sportsnet's coverage.
And Drew and Dave, nobody should be surprised by Chipman's comments because before the season started, he would have said the same thing, right? Like just because the Jets are first place in the Central and first place in the West and could win the President's Trophy, I don't think that's changed how Chipman's, we know they're close, right? The Jets 2.0 obviously only had one general manager, and this is just further solidified his long-term position as the GM of the Jets, right? And we have some comments up. We posted some of them, others we haven't posted, like saying that it's dangerous to promise a general manager a job, especially when they haven't had playoff success. But like it or not, Chevy's not going anywhere. And I agree with Dave. Like, he's done an excellent job, managing certain situations, whether it's Pierre-Luc Dubois, as Dave mentioned, whether it's the Patrick Laine trade, or whatever it is, the Jacob Trouba situation, the Andrew Kopp situation, whatever. Chevy has oftentimes come out on top. And also, not only that, he's managed to make trades in season, whether that's for Vlad Nemesnikov, whether that's for Nino Niederreiter. Like, these are guys, important depth pieces for the Jets, right? And they've managed to not only acquire these guys, but they've managed to sign them to extensions, right? And you look at a guy like Alex Iafallo, who was not considered a key part of that trade, right? But he's a guy that, there's a good chance they re-sign him, and he's filled in nicely for Gabe Vilardi on the top line, right? So, I mean, Chevy's not perfect. I mean, he has made some mistakes, and the Jets organization have made some mistakes, whether it comes to drafting or certain trades that they've made. But the reality is he's here for the long term, and, who knows what the future holds if the Jets, don't have playoff success this year. I don't mean to be a buzzkill, but if the Jets, continue to not have playoff success, maybe things change. But I mean, right now, this team is obviously looking primed for a long run.
There you go. So I wanted to bring that quote to everybody's attention because I thought it certainly was interesting. And I think Dave's right in terms of the excitement and the buzz and the palpable feeling of the successful season that has been had might be, filtering through everything related to do with the Winnipeg Jets and their communications accordingly.
This Daniel Manuk guy's a smart guy. He must have had a really good score on the LSAT.
We'll talk more about the Jets quotes to Elliot Friedman throughout the course of this broadcast. He was here March 27th, right before that New Jersey Devils game. So the quotes are from a couple weeks ago, but I don't think that they've changed the tune very much since the Jets have sort of solidified their spot atop the Central Division and the Western Conference. When we come back this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Cam Poitras from CJOB is going to join us, talk more about the Jets. Michael Trakos in the bottom of hour number 2. Plenty of Jets talk still to come. Drew Mandel, Dave Manuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's a Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Bottom of hour number 1. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Cam Poitras set to join us momentarily, so he will join us to talk about more on the Winnipeg Jets as they're in action tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. Again, for those of you just joining us, or maybe you've been under a bit of a rock, as of late, the Jets need 1 point over the final 3 games that they play.
And they will get it. They will get it.
Or Dallas needs to not win a game in regulation, or lose outright, of course, and the Jets will be first in the Central Division and atop the Western Conference. As we wait for Cam to join us, let me ask you guys that question. Do you think the Jets have a preferred opponent? We saw what they did to St. Louis earlier this week, limiting them to 15 shots on goal in a 3-1 victory that was nowhere near as close as the score would indicate. I think on Thursday, Dave, I referenced the Jets sweeping a Central Division opponent, and I misspoke and said it was Colorado when, in fact, it was Minnesota.
Yeah.
You
corrected
Drew?
You corrected yourself in real time, though, Drew.
I did. Thank you. I appreciate that. The Jets swept Minnesota this year in the games that they played against the Wild. It's been a while since they've seen the Wild. So that's also something to keep in mind. And, of course, the Wild have been banged up. You've been without Kirill Kaprizov.
Well, they're healthy. Well, they were healthy, and then they got some injuries. I think Brodin left the game yesterday against Calgary. So
they had a bad effort against Calgary last night. They could have clinched with a win against the Flames, and they lost to the Flames last night. And then the Flames, of course, are the third team in the running to face the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to leave the Colorado Avalanche out of the equation because I don't think any of us believe the Jets are going to lose their next 3 games in regulation, and Dallas is going to win their next 3 games in regulation, so that won't be an option. So let me ask you this. Is there a preferred opponent from your perspective for the Winnipeg Jets, or does their game translate against any opponent they may face in the first round or in the subsequent rounds of the playoffs? Ezzy, I'll start with you there.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said, I think rings true with the latter, Drew. I don't think the Jets are scared of anybody. And, before I give my answer, I think another question, boys, has to be, does anybody want to face the Winnipeg Jets at all in the playoffs? Like, I'm not talking about the first round. I'm talking about you watch how this team has played just in the last 2 games. Forget the fact that the Jets have been, first in the Central for how long now. I don't think anybody wants to play this Jets team when they're playing like that. When they are playing tight defensively, when they're playing their pressure game, and Hellebuck is playing at the top of his game, I don't think anybody wants to play the Jets. So I just wanted to get that in there. But I said this last week. I think Minnesota, to me, guys, is the preferred team out of St. Louis and Calgary, just for the simple fact that even with Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup, this team doesn't score a lot of goals. And I think the Wild would just be overwhelmed by the Jets' pressure game, and they'd be overwhelmed by the Jets' depth. So for me, it's Minnesota. And look, having Kaprizov back is huge. I mean, that's the equivalent of, the Colorado Avalanche not having Nathan McKinnon, or the Edmonton Oilers not having one of McDavid or Draisaitl. That's how important Kaprizov is to their lineup. And as Dave mentioned, I don't know if the Wild have had the most man games lost this year, but if they haven't, they're right up there, right, Dave?
Yeah.
They've had a lot of injuries with Joel Eriksson Ek and others, Jared Spurgeon, right? He's not back yet, is he? I think is he done for the year? I forget, but Spurgeon is also a guy that's missed significant time for the Wild. So I just think that the Jets would overwhelm the Wild. I really do. And I think it would be a short series. I think that the St. Louis Blues, the Jets beat them as well, but I think maybe the Blues win a couple games. But regardless, I don't think, Dave, the Jets are scared of anybody at this point. They have proven time and time again, whether it's Washington, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Colorado, pick the top teams in the league. The Jets have done a pretty good job of dismantling those teams. So I think right now the Jets are obviously going to tell you, Drew, that they don't care who they play in the first round. Just bring it on. But I think, if you're, for the purposes of this segment, I think that, Minnesota is probably the weakest of those 3 teams in my eye.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of looking at it, and I would tend to agree with you. I don't think it matters. I think St. Louis is hot and everybody's talking about them. Jets, of course, arrested their win streak, and then now they were on a losing streak because they went into Edmonton and lost to the Oilers the next night, or the next game, I should say. But I mean, I think St. Louis is probably a little bit, it's interesting. Like, I mean, Minnesota, there's a huge rivalry selfishly for those of us who may consider going on the road to cover some playoff games, potentially. I mean, Minnesota would be a good one. Or if we just send Colby Spence to cover a playoff game, then Minnesota would be a little bit better. But I think that, I mean, look, they got Joel Eriksson Ek and Kirill Kaprizov back in one game a couple games ago. And then what did they do? Oh, they scored 6 goals in that one game. Eriksson Ek had 4, and Kaprizov, I believe, had 2, including the OT winner. But the fact of the matter is that I think that's a heavy series. And again, Luke Schenn, I think, provides you a good, he buttresses your team now, which, Hartman is going to be less likely, because now you don't have to worry about Adam Lowry being the sole kind of sheriff in town for the Winnipeg Jets. And you need him to be, doing what he does, which is nullifying the opponent's best line. And you don't need him in the penalty box having served 5 minutes for fighting. So from that perspective, you have to have you want to have the guy like Luke Schenn. But like I said, I just think like with the Hartmans, with the Folignos, with Eriksson Ek plays a heavy game. Minnesota would be more of a war of attrition, I think, than St. Louis would be. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Colton Parayko is a big boy. He's not yet back, of course. We think he might be back for the first game. We're not sure, of course, yet. But I think the Jets don't really care who they face. I really don't. I think that they're so prepared. And again, that doesn't mean that they haven't taken nights off. It's just human nature. It just happens. But the fact of the matter is that, as I mentioned on the last show, I believe Scott Arniel or Adam Lowry said to us when we were talking to him this week, that Scott Arniel has his team prepared and has them ready to go. And it just seems to be the case. They've been able to get up for games. So I don't think that we're going to see a team that is going to rest on their laurels and be satisfied if they win game 1 of the playoffs and be like, okay, you're going to see them take a step off the gas on game 2, especially given their history. So I don't think it makes a difference as to the opponent. I think that Minnesota, if you looked at Minnesota earlier in the year, Ezzy, they were definitely the more difficult team because they, like Winnipeg, were 1-2. And they also, like the Jets, had 7 losses for a significant period of time until the losses in the injury situation started happening, and then they disappeared.
So when Kaprizov went out of the lineup, he went out of the lineup on January the 28th. So from October 4th through January 28th, the start of the season until the Kaprizov injury, the Wild were 8th overall in the NHL, 29, 17, and 4. So obviously the Jets were atop the league at 35, 14, and 3 at that point in time. But the Wild, it's not like they were, pushovers by any stretch. They were a top 10 team in the NHL when Kaprizov went out of the lineup.
Yep.
Not to say, again, not to say that they are unbeatable or that they were some dominant force, because they weren't, but they were a good hockey team. Now, when you lose guys in your lineup, I don't think it's as simple as plugging them back in and returning to the same level of success that you had before their injuries. I think injuries oftentimes, take longer to heal than just, when they come back into the lineup. I can't believe that Eriksson, Ek, and Kaprizov are at 100% capability,
right?
After missing all that time and after all the injuries that they suffered. I think an off season is what gets them back to 100%. But for as good as St. Louis has been since the Four Nations Cup, almost before the injuries, that's how good, or pretty close to as good, as Minnesota was. So I don't think the Jets, to your point, Dave, really care who they face, but I don't think that the Wild are this, bottom feeder that's going to be just happy to be there for 4 games.
No, absolutely not.
Especially when you factor in the fact that it would be a rivalry series against the team that they haven't had a lot of success against in the Jets, and a team that their fan base certainly doesn't like, that in the Winnipeg fan base. I do think there's an emotional lift that the Wild will get from a series against the Jets to some extent.
Yeah, but the problem is that Ryan Hartman's not ready for Cole Perfetti. That's the issue.
Yeah, exactly. He's scared to go in the corners with Perfetti, that's for sure. But yeah, there would be some interesting storylines. There's a good rivalry between the Jets and the Wild. It would obviously be a rematch of the 2018 first round playoff series. We know how that went for the Wild, right? But just the way the Jets have played against these top teams, obviously recency bias is the last 2 games against the Blues and the Stars. But if the Jets play anything close to that, they're going to be tough to beat against anybody, right, guys? Like they've dominated Dallas now twice. And again, this is the 3rd overall team in the league. They're 6 points back of the Jets, but at one point, the Jets were 10 points up on the Stars, and the Stars kept winning and winning and winning, right? So,
some would say undeservingly, with a high PDO and things of that nature, poor underlying numbers, which you've sort of seen bite them in the behind the last few games. I would argue that maybe they're coming back down to earth a little bit.
Well, and again, guys, how far do you think the Stars are going to go without Miro Heiskanen? Right? Like,
well, I think you hit the head. That no Heiskanen is a big problem for Dallas.
Huge problem. He's a top 10, at the very least. He's a top 20 defenseman in the NHL. I think I would probably put him top 10. I mean, the guy can skate with the best of them. So I think that would be a huge loss if they don't have him for any significant time in the playoffs, right? So I don't think the Jets are scared of anybody. And I think what's been most impressive about the way the Jets have played the last 2 games is they have taken it to the other team and controlled possession, controlled the high danger chances. I listened to the post-game show. Drew mentioned this. The one thing that the Jets are really taking care of business is making sure that the team that the top teams in the league, they're taking care of business. They're not just beating these teams. They're making sure that they are paying attention to their details. I know we always bring that up, but I mean, the turnovers that the Jets are creating, that's when the Jets are at their best. We've talked about this. When they're playing as a connected 5-man unit out there, they're really tough to beat because they smother you. They're like killer bees out there. They don't give you any time and space, and they make you pay when they have their opportunities. Like another guy I was going to mention, is Jared Anderson Dolan. By the way, Mike McIntyre had a fantastic article about Jared Anderson Dolan's family. If you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out on the Free Press website. Dave had it on illegalcurve.com. But Jared Anderson Dolan right now, boys, I don't know if you can take him out of the lineup. He's been playing really well.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't missed a beat. I mean, this is a guy who, the Jets signed to a 2-year contract in the offseason, and he broke his foot in training camp. So he's definitely...
Remember, he was seen as a 13 forward, Drew.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. They obviously liked him enough to sign him to a 2-year contract. I mean, that tells you a little bit about, the pro scouting team for the Jets thought that this is a guy who might have some untapped potential. Now, we spent most of the year with the Manitoba Moose so far. Again, he got behind the 8 ball when he suffered the injury in training camp. But since he's been in the lineup, and it's only a couple games, but obviously Scott Arniel has liked what he saw in that he elected to keep him in the lineup over David Gustafsson. Rasmus Kupari, of course, still out with the concussion, but he's getting close to being healthy. But, Anderson Dolan, he will, once Velarde's back, he's going to be the odd man out, barring something
100%.
really unexpected. But he certainly has fit in with Winnipeg Jets on that fourth line. You saw it in his net drive that led to Kyle Connor's second goal of the game on Thursday. His the fourth Jets goal against
He picked
Dallas.
up an assist on that goal, right?
He did a little one touch, a nice little in tight one touch pass to Connor on the setup from Morris.
He also had the net drive on. Was it on the first goal or the second goal?
I think it was on the Niederreiter goal.
No, it was on the. Was it? No, I think it was on the Barron goal.
Was it
the Barron goal? Yeah, it was the Barron goal where he drove to the net and he created the kind of the guy that had to look to the side.
That's what I like, Dave, about JAD, right? Like, I love the physical aspect of his game. Like, he's like an old school fourth line grinder, right? Like that's the way I look at a guy like Jared Anderson. And I'm saying that in the most positive way. Like, that's my type of hockey player, right? Like Jared Anderson Dolan. Like, he's a guy you can set your watch to.
But you don't wear a watch. But the truth is that, from my perspective, and I like the comment, but I didn't put it up, but it was up for a second, or I was looking at it, but it was just this idea of the fourth line has been really good all season. And really, when David Gustafsson's been on the fourth line, it's been a good fourth line. Not every single game. Rasmus Kupari, like, they've been able to get a lot out of these guys. They haven't needed to hide them, as we've seen in years past, where fourth lines here in Winnipeg play 4 minutes in a game or 5 minutes in a game.
6 minutes and hold your nose and hope and pray. It's not
right.
That hasn't been the case.
It hasn't been the situation here. So from that perspective, I think it's been really good. I think the Jets have managed to get the most out of players. And maybe there's a bump that Jared Anderson Dolan is getting from playing, all season with the Moose and now getting that opportunity. And again, we've talked about it throughout the course of, the history of this show. When a guy gets opportunity, they try and avail themselves of it. And so that's what you're seeing right now. A guy who is, capable of getting into that role and playing, not trying to do more than he's capable of doing. Right, Ezzy? And it's allowed the fourth line to do things. And that was a really, sweet, very subtle, that little touch to kind of settle the puck down for Kyle Connor. And so, I definitely like Jared Anderson Dolan, good guy. And so he's having success, and as are most of the guys on this Jets team.
Well, the word, again, going back to that 32 Thoughts article, Elliot Friedman's article, and if you haven't checked it out, it's available on illegalcurve.com. It's also, of course, on the Sportsnet website. One of the words, the buzzwords, the internal words, which is also a word that we've used here on the post-game show and on the Saturday shows, is relentless. Here's what Adam Lowry has to say. The way I view it, the 10% more is critical. Remember, we talked about all offseason. The Jets said they need to find a way for everybody to give 10% more. That's what Adam Lowry's referencing. But as we're heading to the ice, the word relentless is plastered on the wall above it. When we're at our best, when we are playing the style we expect, we are relentless. We're a great skating team. We're hard on the forecheck. We smother teams in the neutral zone and then defend really hard. We have a few star players that really carry the mail offensively, but defensively, we're a real stingy team. Yep. That's all four lines, all three D pairings, and both of our goalies. We're relentless in our puck pursuit on the forecheck, on the back check. It's a real long night for the opponent when we are playing that way. So you can see, that what the mindset is and what the mindset has been and what the mantra has been from day one for this team and how they've bought into it and how they've been really living up to that word all season long. And I mean, you see it. Think back to I guess it would be the third goal, the first Kyle Connor goal on Thursday night. So he makes a bad play in the offensive zone. It's a bad turnover.
Yeah.
No question about it. What happens on the back check, though? Dylan Samberg busts his butt back to prevent from being an odd man rush.
Yep.
Luke Schenn goes and he makes a solid defensive play against the boards to snuff out any opportunity for the Dallas Stars. Then the Stars player is the one who makes the careless flip pass into the middle of the ice that Alex Iafallo, who's also back, intercepts.
No, I think it was Morgan. I think it was Morgan Barron who got the stick originally on it, Drew.
Was it Morgan Barron? Okay, right.
Yeah, they did a line change, but it was Morgan Barron who made the initial play in tight, where he chipped the puck into the neutral zone.
Okay, so
The loose puck. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. You're right. If you're right, then I appreciate the.
I know you're just
up there.
I know you're.
Hey, when you're right, you're right, Dave.
As he's checking the NHL.
You're not
score.
right. It's Iafallo. I
was it
right.
really?
Yeah, it was Iafallo who got the secondary.
I guess when you're wrong, you're wrong.
No,
Dave.
whoa.
Barron wasn't on the ice even, so I knew I was right.
Drew, I'm not saying that he didn't get the assist. I'm saying that I'm pretty sure it was Barron who made the play.
He wasn't on the ice.
Okay.
Go back and look. You go back and look. I'm telling you. It's Iafallo who makes the play after the soft.
Well, they look the same anyways. What do you want?
9:36. You know, they're all divisible.
I didn't see. For the record, I didn't see the face. I just saw. I didn't see the numbers. Just saw the face.
Dave just assumes Morgan's Barron's on the ice at all times.
He's omnipresent, is what he is.
Fair.
In any event, it's Iafallo who intercepts the soft play by the Dallas player, as he's relentless on the back check, and then they transition up the ice. Scheifele and then feeds it over to Connor with the beautiful breakaway. But it just goes to show you, I mean, this is the relentlessness of the Winnipeg Jets in action. This is them practicing what they're preaching. And I thought that this goal, coupled with the Lowry quote, is just a great example of it. There's been a litany of examples of it all season long, but this one on Thursday night came to mind immediately, of the Jets making a poor play, picking up that one player who made the poor play, and then as it happens, that same player being the one who scores the goal.
Yeah, and by the way, sorry, as Drew is very right. I went back and watched the video. Which, by the way, Drew, you didn't fact check me, because I'm pretty sure I said the same thing on Thursday, which is the reason why that memory was in my brain, was because
you had me convinced, Dave.
Yeah, I had myself convinced.
You sold it really well, Dave.
I know. I was like, because I thought they did a line change, but you're absolutely right. It was definitely Alex Iafallo. So, you know what? As you can jump in. The only thing I would say though is that the word relentless, which maybe I didn't even realize, Drew, that's the reason why I've been using it so much, is because it's above the Jets. When I'm in the Jets dressing room, maybe it's subliminally popped into my brain, but it is a relentless style. And Tim, the most impressive evidence of it, the first period was good, but I thought both teams played well in the first period. For me, it's third period leads that the Jets have been relentless in maintaining, and just their play overall. And against the Blues, against the Stars, they were, let's see how many times we can use the word relentless in this show, but they were, to my mind, they were beyond relentless in the third periods of games where they had leads. And it's just really impressive to see a team not take we can't take our foot off the gas. We have to push down harder on the gas and get even more aggressive. And they did.
Absolutely. And you've seen the last two games, when they play that style, they are very difficult to beat. Like it doesn't matter who is in front of the Jets. It could be the Blues, it could be the Stars, it could be the Capitals, anybody. They're going to be hard to beat when everybody is dialed in. And let's be honest, guys, there's been some losses recently where the Jets haven't played like that, and they've taken their foot off the gas, and they've played a little bit more of a passive style. But that's the type of game that they want to play. They want to be aggressive. They want to be relentless on the forecheck. They want to be pressuring teams. They want to be creating turnovers, and they want their speed and transition game to take over. And that's what happened against Dallas. Like, Dallas was just overwhelmed. And it was impressive to see. Yeah, like they were without Miro Heiskanen, but aside from that, I mean, they're relatively healthy, right, guys? So I mean, that was the Jets.
Well, as I said,
the Jets perfected their style of play over these last two games. Like, these games were, we hate to use the word statement games, right? But these games were like, this wasn't even close. This was the type of hockey that you need to be playing in the playoffs. And the Jets are obviously, finding their game at the right time. Not that there was a big, slip or anything like that, but they have shown that when they're pressuring teams and they're playing their possession game, they're able to beat anybody.
Well, and I think to your point there, Ezzy, that the Jets game, the way they play, is opponent proof. So going back to sort of the original question about St. Louis versus Calgary versus Minnesota, I don't think the Jets care. I think you're right about that, because they know that when they play their game, when they play it as well as they do, it doesn't matter who their opponent is. St. Louis comes in, they won 12 in a row. I mean, holding a team, I don't care what team you're playing against, but when you hold a team to 15 shots on goal, Dave, you are demoralizing that opponent.
Yeah.
When you're up 2-0 on an opponent entering the third period, and it's a must-win game for that opponent, and you're on the road, and you go out and you dominate that third period, it's demoralizing for that opponent.
What was the final shots, Drew? Like 13-4 in that third or something like that?
In the third
felt-
period on let me
Thursday.
find it here. I mean, hang on, I got to look it up here. On Thursday night, the shots in the third period were 17-8 for the Winnipeg Jets.
Wow.
And there was a point in time, I mean, I think of those 8 shots, a lot of them came, at least half of those came after it was 4-0, after the game was over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think why this Winnipeg Jets team is built different than last year's Winnipeg Jets team.
Yeah.
And I know that they entered last year, the playoffs on that high, having won those, whatever it was, 7 in a row, 8 in a row.
Yeah.
I don't think this is different. It feels different. And the way they're playing, I think, is a completely different style that's built for the playoffs as opposed to how it was last year, which was nice and it was exciting, but I don't think it was it wasn't opponent proof, as we clearly saw.
And by the way, they also have a top power play now.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't get any power play opportunities.
No, I was just going to say
power play.
It's funny. I saw one of the comments. Dietermeister said Jets need to get their PP back to what it was early in the season. The problem, Dietermeister, is they don't get any power plays, so it's hard to do that when you're not getting any man advantages. But no, Drew, we talked about it. Someone came up to us at Boston Pizza. By the way, again, thanks to everyone who showed up on Thursday night. That was a great night. We had a lot of fun with everyone there at Boston Pizza on Taylor.
Was Zoe there?
The entire crew, everybody was at BP. It was a lot of fun. But from that perspective, what was so someone walked up to us, and one of I don't know if they want to be named, but one of our conversations with someone from the show from Thursday essentially said, does this feel like when they were up 4-0, does this feel like that big win over the Colorado Avalanche, 7-0 win? And the Jets were on the power play at that point, I think, in the third period. And I said, no, it really doesn't. Like, this team really doesn't. We get a good sense of, I mean, I think everyone does, but you get a sense of feel for this team, right? You kind of know how the team is going to perform. And this team is not that same team. And I just think that there's a maturity. I guess that's the way I would probably best describe it. This team is in the kind of they've all matured. And again, I mean, it's like any facet of life. You have to go through things in order to kind of get to that next level sometimes. And this team has done that. They've been embarrassed. They were, 114-point team last year, and you end up being knocked out in 5 games in the first round. So from that perspective, you want to be able to say, okay, we are playing a certain style. We're sticking to that style, and it's going to continue. And so again, like I said, I'm just seeing a team that is playing. The wins are important for sure, but the fact is that they don't change how they've played. And in fact, as we've talked about throughout the course of this season, but specifically in the last week, not only did they play a good game through the first 40 boys, which let's remember, Joe Pascucci came up with the stat 40-0-1 when leading after 2. I mean, it's not Joe's stat specifically, but Joe included it in our last group chat, but 40-0-1 when leading after 40 minutes. And we saw why. I mean, look in that game against St. Louis. Look at that game against Dallas. This is a team that doesn't take their foot off the gas. It's impressive.
I go back to, since March 1st, that's just the date I pulled up here real quick. The Jets have given up the second fewest shots against per game at 23.9, just behind the Florida Panthers. Well, I think the Florida Panthers in everyone's mind are certainly a Stanley Cup favorite out of the Eastern Conference. You look at the other teams sort of in that category. You have Florida, just ahead of the Jets. Then you got the Jets, the Blues right behind the Jets. You got the Hurricanes, you got the Avalanche, you got the Kings, you got the Capitals. Yeah. I mean,
the best teams in the league. Yeah.
Those are the best teams in the league. Those 7 teams, are the teams that, are immediately off the tip of the tongue when it comes to, what you expect to be playoff success. I mean, that to me is a team that's rounding their game into form, the Winnipeg Jets are. And part of that, I know that shots for, shots against can sometimes be a misleading stat. But when you look at it, say towards the end of the year, and that to me tells me the Jets they're smothering the teams that they're playing against, that they are doing what's necessary to really just to smooth out the edges of their game so that come next Saturday, next Sunday, and the first round of the playoffs, it's a different Winnipeg Jets team than we've seen in years past, that they are ready for the battle that is ahead of them, and that all of the finer details are sort of locked in, and the team is in the right spot for what I should say should be a successful run come this spring. I'll be shocked. I'll be the first to admit it, and if I eat my words, so be it. I'll be shocked if this team doesn't, win a round for sure, and at least get to a game 7 in round 2. I'll be shocked if it's not, if that to me is the floor for this Winnipeg Jets team at this point in time. And
it's tough to argue with that, right, Drew? You're not going to find many people that are going to argue with that, especially the way they've played these last 2 games. Like, again, recency bias, but they went up against the Blues, who had won 12 games in a row. Well, they dismantled them 3-1. The score was flattering to the Blues. Mm-hmm. And then they go into Dallas, and like we talked about, like you guys talked about on the postgame show at BP, Dallas is coming off of that embarrassing loss to Vancouver, right? So what do the Jets do? They go in there, they score some early goals. I mean, it wasn't a late goal in the first period, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, they got out to the 2-0 lead. They scored first, and in this third period, Kyle Connor puts it away with 2 nice goals, right? So these were not close games, is what I'm saying. The Jets were by far the better team by all the metrics in both of these games. Mm-hmm. And they've shown time and time again, they've got up for the big games. Like we talked about it, the Washington games, the Jets have 2 wins over the Capitals this year. Yes, the season hasn't been perfect. They've lost some games that teams they should beat, they haven't beat. Like the Ducks, for example, they've lost twice to. The game against Vancouver comes to mind. But mm-hmm. when they have employed a certain style, and not only just when they've employed the style, but there's the buy-in from the entire team to play that style. The Jets are going to be tough to beat for anybody. And really, we haven't been able to say that. And then you throw in the improved special teams this year. So when you talk about the floor being, going late in the second round, I think that's accurate. Like, this Jets team is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And, it's going to come down to matchups, and it's going to come down to, can they stay healthy and everything like that. But, based on the way they've been playing as of late, I mean, there's no doubt that they're the favorite right now. Like, everyone is looking at the Jets, and they're saying, like, it's not the Jets looking at other teams saying, who's a threat to us. It's other teams looking at the Jets saying, that's the team that we're probably going to have to beat to win the Cup this year.
And just, along those points about the shots against over the last 6 weeks or so, the team that's dead last in the NHL and shots against per game played, the Dallas Stars. They're giving up 33.3 shots against per game played over the last 6 weeks. So the Dallas Stars, who have been on the Jets' heels, a lot of that has been a little bit of some funny business, and the underlying numbers that we've talked about haven't been as good.
Good goaltending and a high shooting percentage.
Sounds like the Winnipeg Jets of years past, doesn't it?
I was going to say.
In any event, we'll head to break. Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show still to come. Michael Tracos at the bottom of the hour. More Jets talk. Lots to come today on this edition of the program. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. It's a Saturday morning, and we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments.
It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Bottom of the hour. No, it's the top of the hour of hour number 2. I got confused there for a second. Sorry. Used to saying the same thing. My apologies. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Now, Ezzy, is that the same cup of coffee that you spilled, or did you get a new one, or did you sweep up the spill back into the mug so you could drink it? Just give us an update on the coffee situation at your home.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely got more shady behind me because it was
definitely a little less sunny. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's definitely sunny here in St. James and elsewhere across our fair city. It is a new cup of coffee.
Thank you.
I poured a new cup of coffee and wiped the coffee that spilled on the table with my IC shirt.
Okay, well, there you go. You wiped it with your shirt.
I didn't have any napkins around, so I just used it. That's what washing machines are for, Drew.
I will say, Drew, speaking of IC shirts, big thanks to everyone at Boston Pizza. There were a lot of folks wearing Illegal Curve merch at Boston Pizza, and that was very cool to see.
Yeah, we'll have to look into getting that the store opened up again. Obviously,
people were in the chat. They were asking about there's playoffs, Drew.
I know. I probably miscalculated the time and everything. But everyone's got their gear. We'll get you some new gear in time for the start of probably next season or something along those lines.
Well, now that someone has made us turned us into anime, maybe we can put our 3 faces on a T-shirt in anime form.
The Muppet thing really jumped the shark as quickly as anything ever has. Everyone's doing Muppets.
Our thing is now Muppets.
Our
thumbnail was a Muppet today.
I know, but I'm saying now everybody's doing the Muppet thing. Went, it was exciting on Thursday. It was unique, and now everybody's doing the Muppet thing, and it spread like wildfire.
And it makes a lot of sense, guys, because when Drew's talking, all I hear is the nanny. All I hear is wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. That makes that I can accept that, Ezzy. I'll be perfectly honest. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show is brought to you by our friends at Play Now. Don't bet on illegal sites. Bet with Play Now instead. Manitoba's local, legal, and secure gambling site. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. We remind everybody, if you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, because we go live each and every Saturday morning. And again, we go live with the Illegal Curve post-game show. And prior to the home playoff games, we're going to go live with the Illegal Curve pre-game show as well. So lots coming your way from Illegal Curve. We're looking forward to that. Tonight, the Jets in Chicago to face the Blackhawks. It's the Blackhawks home finale on yet another disappointing season in the Windy City. Spencer Knight going to be the starting goaltender for the Blackhawks tonight. The Jets, of course, we don't yet know their lineup decisions. As soon as we have it, if we have it before the 11 o'clock hour, we'll bring it to you here live on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Otherwise, it'll be available on illegalcurve.com. You can certainly get going for that. It's interesting going back to this article. We talked about it when it happened. The disappointing end to the Four Nations tournament for the Winnipeg Jets players.
Drew, he stole your point. That was your point. That was the point you made after Four Nations.
Right. You're saying Scott Arniel stole my point or echoed my point.
Exactly.
Right. Talking about how, obviously Morrissey misses the finale because he's sick. He's got that terrible flu. He can't play. Very disappointing. Kyle Connor, an elite goal scorer, is scratched for reasons nobody quite understands and nobody still to this point in time knows about. But thank you to the idiot coaching staff of the Team USA. Canada will gladly take the victory as a result. Mark Scheifele not selected for the team in the first place. Connor Hellebuyck, loses in overtime to Team Canada. And, this is what Scott Arniel talks about it in this article, just about how, the Jets and these players are sort of using that for motivation moving forward, and how they've been using that as an opportunity to, build on that as it translated to the regular season. He talks about how devastated Josh Morrissey was for being ill, about Connor not playing. He sat down and he talked to all those 4 Jets players. And he says, that they need to bring that motivation back to the team. It didn't work out perfect for all of them, but they were in those situations, which was, to me, is the best part for their growth. That's Scott Arniel talking to Elliot Friedman about it. Again, everything is sort of lined up perfectly for the Winnipeg Jets for a lot of this year. And they even include the 4 nations and how it ended as a driving force for the Jets moving forward.
Yeah, and boys, even to take it, further than the Jets, look at Robert Thomas on St. Louis, who I mentioned when the Jets played the Blues. Like, I don't think anybody will be surprised if Robert Thomas is on Team Canada at the 2026 Olympics. Nobody will be surprised if Mark Scheifele is on Team Canada at the 2026 Olympics. Another guy I mentioned during the 4 nations that I was surprised didn't make Team USA, Tage Thompson. He's had quietest 44-goal season possibly ever. Maybe on the Buffalo Sabres, but so there's other examples beyond the Jets. But yeah, just looking at Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey, guys, I think at the very least you can say, like, these guys get motivated by things like that. You might look at it and say, well, Team Canada won gold, so Morrissey wasn't that upset. Well, obviously he wasn't upset with winning gold, but he wanted to be there. Kyle Connor wanted to be in the Americans lineup for that gold medal game. And I agree with you, Drew. I mean, that's just an asinine decision at this point to keep a guy who's on pace for 100 points out of your lineup, or at the very least, Dave, he's on pace for high 90s, right?
Yeah.
He needs 6 to hit 100, which will be, nobody will be surprised if he gets 6 in the last 3 games, by the way.
I don't think he plays the last 3 games. That's why I don't think he'll get the 6. I mean,
you don't think he plays tonight either?
No, I think he plays tonight for sure. But I think he probably, again, we're talking about. I think most.
He probably plays 2 of. He probably plays 2 of the next 3.
I would say he probably plays 2 of the next 3. That would be fair. He takes 1. Everyone's going to play regularly tonight. You're not going to sit guys, rest guys tonight. So,
you need the point tonight, yeah.
Right. It's in the regular lineup tonight, and then Sunday and Wednesday against Edmonton and Anaheim. That's when you might see guys in and out, and you'll see guys.
It'll be the Manitoba Moose versus the Anaheim Ducks in that last game, guys, which is a good thing for some of those players on the Moose that are going to get rewarded. Like Dave said, there could be as many as 4 or 5 guys.
I know the Moose play at home tonight, right, Dave? And then they go out on the road. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're leaving. Well, they leave on Wednesday to Texas.
So they finish when? They finish Thursday?
Tonight.
Or?
Oh, their season? Sorry. No, their season's no. They go to Texas Wednesday, and then they play. I can't remember if the game's Thursday. No, they play Friday, Saturday, because their end of season stuff would be next Monday.
So conceivably, guys could play for the Jets on Wednesday. If they needed to, they could go play for the Moose Friday, Saturday, and then come back, and some of them would be the Black Aces for the Jets for the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's no question about that.
So there's I'm saying there's no conflict between the Moose schedule and the Jets schedule next week.
No. No. There isn't. Yeah, because the only question will be, as I talked about with the Moose yesterday, will be how many of their guys are getting on the plane on Wednesday to go to Texas, because they may be leaving some behind to face the Anaheim Ducks. Although I do have to say, I appreciate, as he's saying, it'll be the Manitoba Moose versus the Anaheim Ducks, not the Manitoba Moose versus like the San Diego Gulls, because the Anaheim Ducks are basically
the San Diego Gulls.
Yeah. So good one on Ez. But no, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, yeah, you do want to get those guys in, and why not you're going to need those guys anyways, right? You're going to have, Dominic Toninato and Axel Jonsson-Fjällby and why not throw them all in? I mean,
you mean Axel Jonsson daddy?
That's true. But you've got really the only guys who are
he had another child recently, Drew.
Okay.
Axel Jonsson daddy.
I missed that breaking news, but yes, thank you. Congratulations to him and his family on that new addition.
Like, so you've got, well, yeah, for sure. I didn't know if the news was out there, but if as he's
Apparently
saying,
Ginsburg's got.
I was going to say, I knew.
I follow Axel Janssen Fjallby on Instagram, and
okay,
yeah,
okay. I didn't know if he put it out. Okay, yeah, no, they I think that's actually the first Desi. So,
okay,
yeah. So
congratulations to him.
Congratulations to them.
Wonderful.
But another addition to the True North baby factory.
There's got to be so many babies running around between the Jets locker room and the Moose locker room. They're
Yeah.
going to have to open a daycare.
You must be listening to a lot of Marvin Gaye or something.
but anyways, I was just going to say that, really there's 6 guys that are on pace to play the full season. Nino Niederreiter, Dylan DeMello, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Alex Iafallo, and Cole Perfetti. And, the truth is that if you it's always well and good, but this team is definitely, I don't think any of those 6 are going to play all 82 games. My guess is, as we've just talked about, this is going to be.
But last year was it Scheifele? There was some.
No, it was Brendan Dillon, which made no sense. It was Brendan Dillon wanted to play 82 because he hadn't, and so he played in 82. And they, in my mind, I didn't remember if we had that conversation. I thought it was just an unnecessary risk. I know it was against Vancouver Canucks, but although Canucks were a good team. Last
but it was
year,
a nothing game. It was
a nothing game.
It was a meaningless game for both.
That was the game where they called up Nikita Chibrikov and Brad Lambert, and they called up Parker Ford as well. He didn't play. He got into the warm-up. Right. But the fact of the matter is that, no, I just think that you don't take the risk. You get those guys rest. And as I said, you're going to call up. I mean, I don't know how many guys they're going to call up to be on the practice squad for the Winnipeg Jets come playoff time, but it's not going to be an insignificant number. So you'll have a bunch of those guys. I mean, look, it's interesting that they've kept Chris Driedger up with the Jets and had a 3 goalie rotation, right? Like, I mean, Driedger was up because of Comrie talking about babies. About
Chris Driedger was up to be a midwife.
Exactly.
He's a doula. He's a part-time goalie, part-time doula.
But the fact of the matter is that they've kept him, and I think part of that is because Connor Hellebuck. Oftentimes they would use Jason Kasdorf, of course, from the 2011 draft, a Manitoban, of course, right, Ezzy? And so they would use him as the practice goalie, but now they kind of have a third because it gives Connor Hellebuck. You talk about workloads and he knows what he needs, right? He and Wade Flaherty have it down to a science. So from that perspective, what they've done is they've kept Chris Driedger up rather than sending him down. They've given the net for the remainder of the season, as far as I can tell. I mean, it could change to Dominic DiVincentis and Thomas Milic. And they've basically said, listen, Driedger's going to stay up with the Jets and he'll be the guy in practice. And we've seen him at practices all week getting.
And like you said, Dave, there's no roster limits at this point.
Yeah.
So
it's just respecting the cap. Yeah. So yeah, you just have him in and you allow Connor Hellebuck to take drills off or to take some time off, or Driedger finishes the practice. And it just gives Hellebuck that little bit of an edge to say, okay, I can get, a 20-minute skate in and be done as opposed to skating for 40, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the small things you do to fine tune your team and make sure that they're ready for the playoffs. And the Jets, as we've talked about, are clearly going to have a nice, again, I'm going to call it a bit of a mental health break, because it's, and I'm not trying to use that word in any sort of.
Are you talking about the Jets playing the Blackhawks tonight, Drew? Is that a mental health?
I'm just talking about the fact that I was talking about this on Thursday at BP with somebody that, you can only play high pressure games for so long and high intensity games for so long before eventually the pressure just gets too much and you need a release. A win tonight against the Blackhawks, or a point tonight against the Blackhawks, allows the Jets a week's worth of that sort of pressureless relief. Right. It allows them to take that deep breath and sort of recalibrate themselves. And, with regard to the St. Louis Blues, I mean, the Blues have been playing great hockey, but they've been playing that great level of hockey and have had to play that great level of hockey for so long.
Since Four Nations, Drew. February 22nd is when they got when that shootout loss to Winnipeg, right, was when they kind of started the turnaround for themselves. So,
and you can only play at that level for so long, before eventually it just catches up to you. And I think it was Craig Button that we had on a couple weeks ago who said something similar, that you can't play at 100% game after game after game after game for months on end. And eventually there's a little bit of a natural dip. Right. Now, maybe for St. Louis, they've done enough so that natural dip, they need a win tonight against Seattle, and then they clinch their playoff spot. Maybe that allows them to get that little bit of the natural dip. But I sort of go back to last year with the Jets, that they were at that high level for so long. leading up to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Intense, that once that blip happened for the Jets, unfortunately, it happened in the playoffs and they couldn't recapture themselves. I think having the week off, having the ability to get that pressure valve released allows them to sort of, again, find a way to keep building it up again for the playoff time. I do think it's important that you get that time to just unwind a little bit in the lead up to the playoffs, as opposed to entering the playoffs with the quote unquote momentum. I think that, momentum doesn't really last you very long come playoff time, because eventually there's going to be a dip, and the Jets, I think, will have the ability to avoid that entire situation with the fact that they are likely to clinch the division in the next day or so.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, Drew. But and I'm not disagreeing with you now by saying, but I'm saying once the puck is dropped for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs,
right,
we're going to be forgetting about about this. But especially, when you've got guys that are a little bit banged up. We know that, Neil Pionk and Nikolai Ehlers, I'm not saying that they're still banged up. I'm just saying that they're coming back into the lineup with injury. So this time of year, I think everyone's going to appreciate having a little bit of an easier schedule, right? As opposed to, still having to lock up first in the division or first in the conference in game 82 versus Anaheim, right? So I think the Jets are in a really good position. They're going up against a horrible Chicago Blackhawks team, and I stress horrible, because aside from Connor Bedard and Ryan Donato and a few other players,
right,
this is just an awful hockey team. And you mentioned Spencer Knight earlier, who's going to play against the Jets. I love Spencer Knight's story. Obviously, he went into the player assistance program, right? And he's had some good games recently. He's had some rough games as well, but they're coming off of a 5-2 win over Boston. Another one of those really disappointing teams. I don't know who's been more disappointing this year, guys. Boston, the Rangers, or the Predators. I think I'm going to still stick with the Predators, because a lot of people were picking the Predators to be a top team in the Central Division. But, the Hawks beat the Bruins. So, I mean, they're playing for something. You know what they're playing for? They're playing for jobs next year, right? That's all they're playing for.
Yep.
But if the Jets play anything similar to the way that they played against Dallas or St. Louis, I mean, they should be getting an easy point, if not 2 points in this game, right? So I think your point is well taken, Drew, about, this last week, and the Jets are going to be able to rest some guys. Some guys are going to be able to be called up from the Moose. I know a guy like Elias Salamonson we talked about earlier. He's a guy that a lot of people want to see in a Jets uniform during a regular season game, because, of course, he factors in big time in the future. Guys like Brad Lambert, like Dave said, Captain Dominic Toninato, he probably gets rewarded with the game, right, Dave?
Yeah, you get Dylan Coghlan.
You get Dylan Coghlan in there, who's having an underrated year for the Moose. So I think these are all good things. And I just can't wait to be breaking down this time next week the Jets' first-round playoff opponent, because, look, it's been a great regular season, boys. We're 79 games in here, but I'm ready to go for the playoffs. And I know a lot of other people in the chat and Jets fans everywhere are getting fired up, because this regular season has been nice, but we're getting so close that you can taste the playoffs.
Let me ask you this, as he talks about how great the regular season has been, and there's no question about it. How much value do you guys put in a President's Trophy over the course of the next 3 games? So
banners fly forever, like you've said, Drew.
Banners fly forever. It's not the big banner, but it's a banner nonetheless. Washington tonight and tomorrow has a back-to-back against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're in Columbus tonight. They're home to Columbus tomorrow. Alex Ovechkin is not playing for Columbus tonight. Pardon me, he's not playing
Columbus.
for Washington. Yeah.
Breaking news by Drew.
He's not playing for Columbus tonight. He's also not playing for Washington tonight.
Yeah.
So, obviously I think Washington, they've clinched the East. They've clinched the Metropolitan. Are they sort of saying, we don't care about the President's Trophy based on that? And what do you think the Jets should do along those same lines?
I think that you have to keep the same mindset, but at the same time, right now your mindset is it's great to have home ice throughout the playoffs. It's no question about it. But the most important home ice, the only really, again, is the Western,
Central.
Well, for sure in the Central, as you're right, but
it's the
also,
same thing. You win the Central, you win the West. Yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. And I just think that having it throughout the course of the first 3 rounds is huge. And obviously, if you look right now, the Jets, if they win out all their games, Drew, are ahead of the Washington Capitals, right? So I know the Capitals have a game in hand.
Doesn't matter. Jets win out. They finish at 118. Best Washington can do is 117.
Right. And the Jets, well, it's close. They both have a similar number in terms of
The
regulation
Jets
wins.
have the regulation win tiebreaker right now by one.
Yeah.
They have 43 regulation wins.
Versus
Washington
42.
has 42.
So again, I understand that. And I don't disregard winning the President's Trophy. I mean, this has been a team that has played at first place or near first place for the entirety of the race. I mean, this is, if you're talking about it from a horse racing perspective, which I love, of course, is that this is not a short race.
R.I.P. Waggles.
Well, I don't know if Waggles is dead, but yeah, we just don't have Waggles anymore. But and
R.I.P. the ownership of Waggles.
Yes, fair.
Let's not kill off Waggles if we don't have to.
Poor Waggles, just like living out in a pasture somewhere, and it's like all of a sudden,
I thought Waggles was at the glue factory. Sorry.
Well, it's actually
Yeah,
dog
but he's
food,
just there visiting. It's a great tour if you haven't been there before.
So I think it's not about like the banner. Of course, you can hang the banner. I mean, look, the Moose have banners that they've from past past teams, that have won, and I think
Drew's got banners on his wall, Dave.
At the end of the day, this is something that a Jets team in Winnipeg has never accomplished. I know that obviously the WHA Jets had tons of success. That was before mine and Ezzy's time, but Drew, of course, was 25, I think, around then. But
I was doing post-game shows, just not on YouTube at that point in time.
but the fact of the matter is that it wouldn't be an insignificant thing for the Winnipeg Jets to, and again, like I said, this whole idea of a President's Trophy curse, like I went back and I looked in the 37 years that they've been handing it out. I know that there hasn't been a winner since 2013. But the fact of the matter is that, like, I don't believe in curses, quite frankly. Like, I don't believe that people talk about the whiteout being a curse. Like, with all due respect to everyone,
who's saying that?
Lots of folks, lots of people would say, get rid of the whiteout. It's blah, blah, blah. It's cursed.
What?
You know, sure. But I mean, again, like I said, like,
that's crazy talk.
But I'm saying it's the reality is I'm telling you what I see. And so the fact of the matter is,
whoever saying that is not a real Jets fan. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, people are entitled to have their opinion, I would say, but at the end
people
of the
are
day,
not entitled to have their own opinion, Dave. That's not okay.
But I just think that it's not about like, okay, we won the President's Trophy. Now we get to take our, like, I don't think anybody in the Jets organization is going to be like, wow, we won the President's Trophy. Now we get to take our foot off the gas.
No,
it's
of
just,
course not.
it's a feather in the cap of a season that's been unbelievable.
Okay, I agree with you there. Let's go to commercial break. When we come back, our good friend Michael Trakos is going to join us for more Jets talk, NHL talk. We'll look around the league as well, and plenty of Jets talk to come in the last 30 or so minutes of this morning's program. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's presented by our friends at Play Now. Don't go anywhere. We are back Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. If you haven't already done so, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, turn your notifications on. That's a big one. Turn your notifications on. That way you'll get alerted each and every time we go live with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on Saturday mornings, with the Illegal Curve postgame show after each and every Jets game, like later tonight, as he's going to drive the bus on that. And then, of course, come playoff time, the Illegal Curve pregame show. Be sure to be locked in, and that way you won't miss a minute of Illegal Curve action. Thrilled to welcome back to the program a man who's probably got the longest title in the NHL, the managing editor of digital media for the Hockey News. We just call him our good friend, Michael Trakos. Michael, good morning. How are you, buddy?
It's pretty good. Thanks for having me on, Drew. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, I'm just going to call you. I'm just going to say from now on, you're from the Hockey News. Is that okay with you?
I think the more important you get, the more words get tacked onto your title.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to be the director, vice president of digital media.
You can keep shoveling whatever kind of BS you want at it, Michael. You're still our good buddy, and we know the truth of it all deep down. But in any event, it's great to see you, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited here because, we're getting closer. We're starting to figure out who's going to get to play who in the first round, which is, I don't know how you guys are feeling about the, are you picking Minnesota? Or are you picking St. Louis as to who might be the easier opponent?
You're overlooking the Calgary Flames as well. They're still not out of it. But, we talked about that earlier on the show, Michael, and what we were saying, and I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on the Winnipeg Jets, of course, as they've been performing atop the NHL for the majority of the season. But what we were saying earlier is that when the Jets play their game, the relentless style of game that we saw on Thursday against Dallas. We saw on Monday against St. Louis. We saw last week against the Vegas Golden Knights. And we've seen really ad nauseum all season long that their game is opponent proof. Play that style of game, and it doesn't matter who you play against. When you have, I know every team would probably say that out loud, but other teams can preach it and have it be more believable. The Jets are one of those teams. I just, from your perspective, you're a Toronto guy, but you follow the whole league. What are you watching when you see the Winnipeg Jets as of late?
Yeah, you know what? I think from the outsider's perspective, it all starts with Connor Hellebuyck. I think when you've got an elite guy in net like that, and we were talking around the office yesterday, or the virtual office, I should say, because we don't actually have an office anymore. But we were saying, is Connor Hellebuyck, forget about the Vezina, because I think he's the runaway winner on that, but does he become a finalist for the Hart? And it's always the debate in Winnipeg, because so much of the Jets' success relies on the goaltending, and that's nothing against, the season that Scheifele's had, the season that Kyle Connor's had, and the depth that you're talking about, which is up and down the roster. But really, when you've got Hellebuyck back there, that is, that's the X factor that I think every team is looking for, and that's why the Jets are such a, I've got them right now as, if I'm going to drop my top 4 contenders for a cup, obviously Colorado's in there, but, I've got the Jets ahead of Dallas, and, that win against Dallas this week was a statement win. But the other thing that really kind of scares me about the Jets is they're playing great hockey at the time where you need to be playing great hockey. Like, this isn't a team that, packed away its points and is now kind of going into the playoffs, moonwalking in. They're still 7-3-0 in their last 10. They're on a winning streak right now. They're playing great hockey, and I think that's the thing that you want, because last year's first round exit is still probably fresh in a lot of people's minds.
No, Mike, I wanted to ask you about Kyle Connor, because obviously he had a huge game against Dallas, scoring his 39th and 40th goals of the year. And we've been joking about this for years here on this show, and I think Jets fans it's kind of been this thing that people are sick of talking about. But I mean, is he not still underrated in terms of what he's doing, right? Like 94 points, career high. We don't know if he's going to play all 3 games, because obviously if the Jets get a point tonight and clinch, there's a chance that he gets a game off. So I don't know if 100 points is realistic, but regardless, a career season for Kyle Connor. And wanted to tie this into the 4 Nations as well, because, as you know, he didn't play in that gold medal game. He was a healthy scratch in that gold medal game versus Canada. But what we've noticed about Kyle Connor this year is his commitment to defense this year, because that's been the knock on Kyle Connor, has been that he, sometimes is a little bit loose defensively, and I'm being polite by saying that, right? But what have you noticed from afar? Because we always say this, right? And Jets fans have this inferiority complex where, people in Toronto are not paying attention to Kyle Connor, but I think you'd agree that he's making people pay attention to him this year.
No, I agree. And the thing about being underrated, I always say you're underrated because you haven't done anything in the playoffs. And, what do we always say about Sasha Barkov or even Jonathan Huberdeau is, these guys are underrated. And then Florida goes and wins a Stanley Cup, and then all of a sudden no one says that Barkov's underrated. It's like, yeah, we saw it for 4 rounds. I think that's the one thing standing in the way of Kyle Connor right now is, you have to go all the way back to the 2018 playoffs where the Jets made it past the second round, and Connor, played 17 games. I'm looking at the stats there, 3 goals, 10 points in 17 games. Since then, it's like 6 games, 4 games, 8 games, 5 games, 5 games. Unless you're playing in Toronto, you can't have those kind of stat lines where you're only playing a round or barely 2 rounds and expect to be a superstar in the minds of everyone. So I think that's really the only thing. And you go back to the 4 Nations, and that was a knock on Connor because, the U.S. chose Matthew Tkachuk at like 10% rather than a healthy Kyle Connor. Like, that was a kind of slap in the face. But at the same time, until you've done it at the big stage, and when I'm saying big stage, I'm talking postseason, you're always going to have that knock against you, because you're right. You look at the regular season stats, and this guy he's money in the bank for 30 goals, with his eyes closed.
Well, Michael, the Jets are in Chicago today, and one of the guys they're going to be facing is a kid named Connor Bedard, and his name has been up and down in the media, and he's had a lot of conversation about him. Is it a sophomore slump? Is it not a sophomore slump? Well, you wrote about that a few days ago. So, what have you noticed in Connor Bedard this season?
I feel sorry for the guy, Dave. I really do. If there's one player that you just kind of like, can we just put him on a better team? It would be Connor Bedard, because what a miserable last couple of years. Like, he dealt with the Corey Perry stuff last year. Guys come and go. Like, Taylor Hall is playing his best hockey after leaving Chicago. Seth Jones looks like a new man since leaving Chicago. And you look at Bedard, he's playing with like Ilya Mikheyev, and I think he doesn't have like top line mates. He's got the worst plus minus in the NHL. You're right. I wrote about this. Like, he's not having that breakout year, but he's also not having a sophomore slump. It's basically kind of a flat line. And, that's not what you want out of a guy who went number 1 overall. Like, we were talking about, if you had to, choose one or the other, would you rather have a Macklin Celebrini or a Connor Bedard right now? And, right now I would say Macklin Celebrini, because he plays more of an all-round game, but that Bedard, once, he gets better players in Chicago, we're looking at a guy that could probably score 40, 50 goals.
Michael Trakos of the Hockey News, our guest this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Michael, kicking it back to the Jets real briefly. You mentioned that it starts with Connor Hellebuyck, and I don't think anybody would necessarily disagree with that assessment, because we all know how good he is and how good he has been. If he doesn't win the Hart Trophy this year, is it worth just saying it's not an award a goalie can win anymore? Because if there ever was a year at this point where he has done enough to earn it, and nobody else, no other forward or defenseman has done it to sort of grab the trophy from him, make an argument against him winning the Hart Trophy, I would say.
It's a hard argument to make, especially because, you look at what the point totals were last year compared to what they were this year, and we're seeing a decrease. I think I was looking back at it, and it's like the lowest point totals in like 5 years or something, where the top scorer is not going to get close to the numbers that they were putting up a year ago, or even 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. I think you got to go back to like the COVID pandemic year, where they're this low. So you're right, Drew. There is an opening, in probably there should be an opening in a lot of people's minds, whether it's Connor Hellebuyck, heck, whether it should be Cale Makar, scoring 30 goals, 90 points as a defenseman.
Insane.
That should get you Hart Trophy consideration. But the problem is Cale Makar plays on a team with Nathan McKinnon, so it almost kind of like they cancel each other out. Like, who is the most valuable guy to his team? I don't know. Both of them are pretty darn valuable. I can't make an argument that Connor Hellebuyck shouldn't be the Hart Trophy finalist. Like, I just got my my voting ballot last night from the NHL, and they asked for 5 guys. Hellebuck's going to be one of my 5.
I like it. That's a little breaking news there, and I obviously, Mike, Jets fans are going to love hearing that, because
hold on, Ezzy, he didn't say where on his 5 though. Just be aware.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't say, but I think we know he's not going to be 5th. Mike, at least give us that, right? He's not going to be 5th. But
I got to leave some anticipation or some suspense there.
He's got to do his deep dive. Don't put the man on the spot. I understand that.
This is not over, Ezzy.
Well, exactly. And Nikita Kucherov just keeps piling up the points, right? So he's obviously going to be in there as well. But I just wanted to get away from the Jets for a second, because obviously, you mentioned Colorado, and that's really what this is all about, right? Jets winning the division is all about avoiding Colorado. I think you'd agree that's the team the Jets are probably more scared of than the Dallas Stars right now. But I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if you know that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be playing the Ottawa Senators in the first round. I don't know if you've heard about that, but I mean, what are Leafs fans going to do if they get knocked out in the first round? Because
especially by the Senators of all teams.
Well, exactly.
They're going to do what they did the last year, and then like every other year, basically.
Yeah, no, but what's your? I mean, obviously the Senators in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. They've been a great story. But what's your assessment of that series? Because I think you would agree that's going to be maybe a closer series than some people predict.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Ottawa is basically Florida Florida light right now. Like they basically have copied their playbook. Like they've got a Kachuk on their team. They play a heavy game. I think they're top 5 in team hits, and it's a big team that rolls 4 lines. I don't think there's been this much pressure on the Toronto Maple Leafs to try to get out of the first round as any other year. Obviously, they're going to probably win the division, and that sets them up for possibly, like you mentioned, a Battle of Ontario against the Ottawa Senators. Toronto's going to be the overwhelming favorite. It's just, that's how it's going to be. This is Ottawa's first appearance in like 7 years, and Toronto's had Ottawa's numbers in past playoffs, so all the pressure is going to be on the Leafs, and basically they got to get out of the first round, or people are going to run Mitch Marner out of town, and John Tavares is the free agent, so he might be gone, and there's already talk that Matthew Knies might get offer sheeted, so a lot on the stake for the Leafs. Obviously, it's Craig Berube's first playoff with the Leafs, and Brad Treliving's second one, and a very important one, so I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be the must-watch first round series. And I don't think it's going to come easy. I think that Ottawa Senators team is going to be a handful, whether they face the Leafs or any other team. They're just such a big, nasty team. And I really like the way that they're playing ever since Dylan Cousins joined the team as well.
Michael, we always talk about playoffs creating, hate. And I actually think one of the most anticipated series for me is the Florida and the Tampa Bay one, because I think that those two teams just don't. I didn't realize how much they don't like each other till Ryan Lomberg went and did his tour of Florida with the Calgary Flames and kind of revealed it for everyone, just to say how much he dislikes the Florida Panthers. The Tampa Bay Lightning still. So to me, I think that series is fascinating, especially given that they've met a couple of times previously. But how do you see that sort of series playing out? Because from my mind, and obviously I don't watch a lot of the Panthers games, but I see a team that has won before, knows how to win, I think they're coasting into the playoffs. I think kind of like the Oilers, they know what they need to do. They know that they're where they're going to be, and they're not going at 100% effort right now. But how do you see that series playing out?
I think Tampa Bay is a sneaky playoff team. No one's really been talking about them all year, and then you're going, oh, wait, Kucherov's having another monster year. Braden Point's another 40-goal season. Vasilevsky, aside from Connor Hellebuyck, has been the best goalie in the NHL, and they've just got so much depth, whether it's Gensel, whether it's Hagel, Cirelli. And you still got Hedman on the back end. So I think Tampa Bay is going to be a real hard out. Florida really scares me because they're going to be missing Ekblad for the first couple games. Matthew Tkachuk looks like he's going to be playing hurt again. This guy never plays healthy, so it's not that big of a deal, but they are kind of limping into the playoffs. And, going into the final 2 years in a row, Dave, that is going to take its toll, and we're seeing it take its toll. So, I think they're going to beat the crap out of each other, but I've got Tampa Bay winning that one.
Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on. Michael Trakos of the Hockey News is our guest. Reminder, later tonight, the Illegal Curve post-game show following the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks. As a rite of spring is the LA Kings against the Edmonton Oilers. Are the Kings getting enough respect around the league, Michael? Because to me, they should be the favorite over an Edmonton Oilers team that has been, I would describe as average for the majority of the year, and is also certainly banged up and not the least bit healthy entering the most important time of the season.
Yeah, Edmonton, I don't see them winning this series. At the same time, it's hard to bet against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Like those two could just beat you without any other contributions. But you're right, the Kings don't probably get enough respect, and that's a 3-line team. Their third line's got Warren Fogle. I think he scored 20 goals. They've got Trevor Moore. They are a team that, you look up and down their roster, and every single line, it seems like they've got a 20-goal scorer and a 30-goal scorer. And I don't think that people give them enough credit because Darcy Kemper's playing great in net. It's going to be funny because we talked about rivalries, and Dave was talking about like the Tampa Bay hate Florida. Man, if I'm LA, I've got to have a mad hate on for the Oilers. Like it's been 3 straight years where they've knocked you out. Like that is embarrassing. That's more embarrassing than Boston knocking out Toronto to a degree. So, you know they're going to be motivated. This might be Drew Doughty's kind of last hurrah where he's saying, okay, I've got, maybe 1-2 more years, good years left on my body where I can make that run. Same with Anze Kopitar. So, watch out for the Kings. Like they could be that sneaky team out of the Pacific.
Mike, I got to take it back to the East because you're obviously in the East, and I'm fascinated by the Montreal Canadiens because I think you'd agree nobody had high expectations for this team. I think people thought they were going to be better than they were last year, but obviously they've clinched a playoff spot. They're going to play Washington in the first round. I wanted to specifically ask you about Lane Hudson because he broke Chris Chelios' record for the most assists by a rookie defenseman in Montreal Canadiens history. He was a 62nd overall pick in 2022, and I think if you redo that draft, he might be a top 3 pick. He's just been incredible. What has been your assessment of Lane Hudson, who obviously has a really good chance of winning the Calder this year?
Yeah, if you see the highlights, you see a lot of Cale Makar in his game. He doesn't shoot the puck like Cale does, but just in terms of how he can stop and start and really kind of keep you on your heels, he's as good as it gets. His younger brother, Cole Hudson, looks like another fantastic guy. Like we saw him at the World Juniors, but Lane Hudson is the runaway favorite right now for the Calder. People are asking me, should he get some votes for the Norris? And I don't think he falls in the top 3, but I could see him finishing 4th or even 5th in voting, which is, wow, a 21-year-old rookie defenseman, to think that he's going to possibly maybe be a finalist.
It's just unheard of, right?
It doesn't seem right. So, Montreal's probably not a playoff team without Hudson. And that's, obviously they're getting great contributions from Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Slafkovsky. I didn't expect Montreal, like you said, to be a playoff team. I thought it was going to be Buffalo and Ottawa. If I had to take 2 of those teams, maybe Detroit, but good on Montreal. They've broken through one of the hottest teams in the second half. Marty St. Louis deserves a lot of credit. And the one exciting thing is they're going to get Ivan Demidov back from
He's
Russia.
on the ice right now.
Is he on the ice? Okay, so
I'm pretty sure they're still at the airport following him around as he lands, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, Drew's got Live Barn on his computer right now.
No. They're all the Montreal reporters are tweeting the photo of Demidov hitting the ice.
I don't know if
they play in Toronto tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Michkov, I know got a lot of hype coming out of the KHL, but it seems like Demidov, just because he's a Montreal Canadian, 5th overall pick, we keep seeing the highlights on Twitter of what he's doing in the KHL. This could be a real big X factor for the Canadians. And again, they're kind of playing with house money. So if they play Washington in the first round, I don't feel right about Washington, possibly being able to get past Montreal, because it reminds me of that year when they played the Habs in a similar spot and Halak got hot and they had Mike Camilleri, and it was just kind of like a Cinderella story. And Montreal does Cinderella stories better than any franchise, it seems like.
Well, we're going to go away from Cinderella, Mike, even though we're a week away from the playoffs, and that's, we're all very excited about that. But let's talk about disappointments, because there are a lot of teams that, like, I'm looking at the standings and seeing the Boston Bruins in last place in the Eastern Conference seems insane. I mean, obviously the Boston Bruins trading Brad Marchand seemed insane. So the fact is that, from your mind, is it the Nashville Predators, is it the New York Rangers, or is it the Boston Bruins? Which team do you think is the most disappointing based on how things were looking in the preseason or in the summer and then to now?
For me, Nashville's been the disappointing story all year, but I'm almost bored with that one now. For me, it's now Vancouver and the New York Rangers are in a tie with, which team can create more drama and more disappointment. And right now it's like New York's got the edge, but wait a second, Vancouver's coming from behind. And it's just, both teams have just been so awful. And now we're hearing Brock Besser doesn't want to re-sign. It's like, if I'm Quinn Hughes, I'm just going, all right, how many years do I got left here? Okay. All right. After that, send me to New Jersey. I'll play with my 2 brothers there. But it's just been, Vancouver was the best team in the Pacific a year ago, basically rolled it back this year. And they've just been, we could go over the whole JT Miller, Pedersen drama, but, it's been one story, bad story after another. And then you look at New York right now. And again, like, it's one thing after another again with that team. So now we're hearing that Laviolette doesn't even talk to the players after losses. Like let's turn the page on both franchises. I think both of them need a reset, get a new coach, possibly a new GM. And but both teams have just been stinkers for me.
Yeah, they certainly have been, but these stinkers will soon go away. About a week away from the stinkers not being in our forethoughts or in our thoughts anymore, and then it's all playoff focused at this point in time moving forward. You've talked about sort of my last question for you here, Mike. You've sort of talked about some of the teams and some of the upsets and how you think things might shake out. Is there one team that is sort of towards the top of their division that to you is a paper tiger? That is, I mean, you mentioned that you think Montreal can beat Washington. We talked about LA and Edmonton. Dallas is, right been on the Jets' heels for so long. But, you look at their numbers, you look under the hood a little bit of the Dallas Stars, especially with no, with no Heiskanen on the back end. Do you trust the Dallas Stars, let's say, come playoff time?
Not if they're playing Colorado. I don't trust any team that's playing Colorado. I see what you mean. Like Carolina is another one for me, Drew.
Really?
That I'm like, 97 points this year, but do you trust Freddie Anderson to carry it in the playoffs? And if he can't do it, you're going to turn it over to Kochetkov in net, who is young and hasn't had a great year as well. Their defense is kind of banged up or just not as deep as it was a year ago. The Metro is such a weird one, like where you've got Washington winning the division, but then after that, like Carolina, like I just mentioned, and then New Jersey basically slumping in there with 89 points. That's the one for me is Carolina. Like, have they kept Rantanen and been able to keep him? I might feel a little different, but now you got Logan Stankoven, who's, not quite at that same level. And, if they don't get past the first or second round this year or even get close to a Stanley Cup, and like I know a lot of fingers are going to point at Eric Tulsky as well as Rod Brindamore. So that's the one that I'm kind of wondering, what kind of team are we going to see out of the Hurricanes? And I'm wearing my bunch of jerks right now, shirt, but it seems like forever ago where they had that kind of chip on their shoulder playing with a little bit of kind of like, us against the world kind of mentality. Now it just feels like, why doesn't anyone want to play in Carolina? How come we can't keep our free agents? How come we trade for a guy and he just wants to get out of here? So I kind of feel bad for the Hurricanes.
They'll get to the second round and then lose in the second round, Mike, like they always do.
They are consistent in that way. Hang on. Deep breath. Michael Trakos is the managing editor, digital media for the Hockey News. He's a good friend of ours here on Illegal Curve. Michael, great catching up. Great seeing you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We'll do it again soon and enjoy the start of the playoffs a week away.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care, Michael. Thanks so much. Good friend of ours, has been a good friend of ours for many years. Michael Trakos joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I think I'm right, by the way, that there's no morning skate for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, there must be because Weaver's not, or Mike McIntyre is not tweeting anything. So
right, so
yeah,
it's 11
that's unusual.
It's 11 o'clock Central
There was supposed to be one because I asked Mike to be on the show, and he said he couldn't come on the show because he was going to be in both dressing rooms.
Well, I tell you what, did you see the pizza, the deep dish Chicago pizza that Mike had last night? He posted it, I think, either on Twitter or on Instagram. Mike might be laid up for a little while. That was a pizza and a half, as everybody who knows what Chicago deep dish is
I've had
all
deep
about.
dish. Trust me, Drew, I've been to Chicago a few times. This isn't my opportunity to say, though, what an amazing city Chicago is. I mean, there's some great cities in the U.S., but I'm going to put Chicago right up there with the food and sports and music and architecture. Yes, Drew, I did go on an architectural tour when I was in Chicago, so you'll be proud of me.
Up the river.
Yeah, I was on that river with that stuff. You know that stuff they put in the river, that like whatever that to make it that color. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they dye.
Yeah. And I was there in 2017 covering the draft.
Weren't you on the boat with the draft?
I was on the boat, with Cody Glass and the boys. Who went number one that year? Nolan Patrick. No, Nico Hischier. Hischier went first overall that year. Patrick.
You're like, hey, you walked up to him and you're like, hey, the Devils.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're gonna be
It was basically the Chris Farley show with Ezzy
Yeah.
Ginsburg in the role of Chris Farley.
and that year, guys, Christian Vesalainen was taken by the Jets in the first round that year. Dylan
Jets still
Samberg,
have his rights, don't they? Don't
Yes.
they still have his rights?
but Dylan Samberg was a second round pick that year, so I always got to get that in there. There was a pretty good second round pick by the Jets in 2017. But Chicago's a great city. But I digress here, guys. The Jets should be able to handle Chicago. This is a putrid Blackhawks team, and I'm with Michael Trakos. It's unfortunate that Connor Bedard has to skate with some of these guys, but hopefully they're going to be able to turn it around. I just don't know how soon that's going to be.
No question about it. And we'll have complete coverage of tonight's Jets Blackhawks game on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Ezzy Ginsburg and Connor Hrabchuk are going to be driving the post-game bus later on tonight. So you can be sure to tune in for that right around 8:45 or so Central Time. The expectation, the pre-game expectation, of course, would be that the Winnipeg Jets would be strong favorites to wrap up the Central Division, wrap up the Western Conference. They need the 1 point in order to do so, but of course they still have to do it on the ice. And Ezzy and Connor will discuss it all later tonight on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Been a lot of fun this Saturday morning. It's flown by. Talking about the Winnipeg Jets. As everybody knows, our mindsets are now focused on the playoffs. So we remind you that tonight there's a post-game show. Tomorrow night there's a post-game show. Wednesday there's a post-game show. And then next Saturday morning will be a comprehensive playoff preview of the Winnipeg Jets versus ? We'll know soon enough who that question mark is, but not quite yet. But join us Saturday morning, 9 a.m., for the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We will be all about the Winnipeg Jets as they commence their playoff drive, and that'll start next weekend, whether game one is Saturday or game one is on Sunday. Time will tell. We'll be here. We'll be at City Place on Saturday or Sunday. We'll be at Boston Pizza for one of the games as well. So you can stay tuned for details about the next Illegal Curve watch party.
We're going to be omnipresent, Drew. We're going to be everywhere.
That is exactly what we are going to be. So keep it locked to all of our social medias at Illegal Curve. In fact, go to our Instagram page because we're giving away a CCM Pro hockey stick.
I was just going to say that, Drew. Jet Speed FT7 Pro stick. So if you want to enter that contest, Facebook, it's pinned on our Facebook and on Instagram. I don't know if I've pinned it there, but I will do that. And all you have to do, answer a question, like it, follow, and you get bonus if you follow us here on YouTube. So make sure you're following us on YouTube, and you have a chance to win a really cool stick. We're going to do the draw in 2 days.
That's right. So if you haven't already entered, head over to our at Illegal Curve social media platforms and enter to win this great hockey stick that's courtesy of our friends at CCM. Great show.
And sorry, I was going to say, Drew actually used that in a rec hockey game and scored a couple goals. So
that's right. Exactly. That's me. I don't, can't really skate, can't really shoot, but I got really soft hands right around the net. I got a goal. I got a nose for the goal.
It explains why Greg wanted you to sign his jersey at Thursday night at Boston Pizza. As just so you know, Greg did say he left a space open, said make sure, as he knows, there's a space open for Ginsburg. So it says Drew, space, Dave, and then it says Illegal Curve underneath. So
the question though is, Dave, did Spency sign the jersey as well?
Spency did not, but Spency was walking around Boston Pizza, just kind of looked like a lost puppy without Ezzy Ginsburg there. A lot of folks were upset that you weren't there. So we'll next time we are at Boston Pizza, Ezzy will be there, and we'll all have a good time.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. It's great week all together. Going to be
by the way, Drew, last Moose game of the season, last home game, I should say, of the season tonight. The Moose, it's their fan appreciation game. If you want to win some pretty cool merch, actually. And speaking of Elias Salamonson, his All-Star jersey, I believe they've signed it, so you can win an All-Star signed Elias Salamonson jersey, and they're giving away some of the old school Moose jerseys from the last few years. So 25th anniversary of the Manitoba Moose. We will do our end of season media roundtable, Ezzy, although it's not really a round table, it's more of a square box that we're in, but we will be doing that on at some point in the next few weeks. We'll see how we can make it work with, of course, the Jets schedule, but should be a good one. 25 years of Manitoba Moose AHL hockey here in Manitoba, and so they're going to send folks home with some cool prizes tonight if you go to the game. Puck drop 6 o'clock. We'll try and have commingled coverage about the Jets and the Moose.
There you go. All sorts of good stuff coming your way from us at Illegal Curve, which means you got to keep it locked to illegalcurve.com, to all of our social media channels. You got to subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and turn your notifications on. That way you get alerted each and every time we go live here on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. Great show this morning. Big thanks to Michael Tracos. Big thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to all of the chatters. That is, of course, our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. The incredible Boris, comedy hypnotist, at Rumors tonight. A few tickets left for the 9 p.m. show. Get those at rumorscomedyclub.com. Play Now is the title sponsor. Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and of course our friends at Seagram's. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. For Dave Minuk, for Ezzy Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. We'll see everybody later tonight for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Until then, have a great Saturday, everybody. And as a reminder, if it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll see everybody for the post-game show later tonight.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.